This is a video about two cartoons, one American, one Soviet, both made in the 20th century, both about Africa and the white man's place in it, and neither one was made by a single black person. One was banned from American television for being too racist to air 30 years after it was released, mind you. The other never even made it to American screens in the first place. And yet, they tell almost opposite stories. One shows Africans as human beings being exploited, the other shows them as cannibals to be laughed at. So why do two outsider-made films about the same subject end up saying completely different things? In this video, I will analyze The African Tale and Jungle Jitters in order to try and answer this question. So let's start with The African Tale. The African Tale is a Soviet cartoon made in 1963, shortly after a turbulent time in African politics with many nations fighting and claiming independence from colonizers. The cartoon starts showing the protagonist, a black man in Africa, portrayed through an art style that seems outdated by today's standards but still respecting of black people, drawing their lips and noses in proportion and ultimately appreciative of them as human beings. The African man is shown farming and working on his land, climbing trees in order to collect their fruit, decorating and painting his beautiful hut. But then the elephant appears, a guest in the land of the man.
Но как-то раз на земле человека появился некий гость. Гость растрогался. Какая богатая земля. Мне чертовски повезло, что я здесь первый из зверей.
And the elephant is impressed by the African man's land. The elephant eats up all the fish, all the fruit, and proceeds to distract the man with cigarettes and magazines and all the fruits of capitalist Western civilization.
Пока человек увлеченно приобщался к высокой цивилизации, слон сожрал все, что мог. А так как пошел дождь, то настала очередь хижины. Человек обрадовался, что высокий гость лично посетил его скромное жилище. Но у слона были свои планы.
Ты удивлен, что так получилось, человек? Погоди. Господин слон сейчас тебе все объяснит.
Видишь ли, парень, твоя черная кожа покрепче моей, да и здесь нет места для двоих, так что оставайся там, а я тут. Не скучай.
The black man angrily tries to take his hut over again, but the lion appears. It proceeds to gather all of the animals for a trial.
Вот ты уже и под судом, человек.
Слово потерпевшему, объявил председатель Лев. Господин председатель, уважаемые господа, я глубоко тронут вашим горячим желанием защитить меня от грубых нападок моего отсталого черного друга. Благодарю вас. Благодарю. Но, господа, прошу вас, Будьте снисходительны к бедному черному человеку.
Call the black man an aggressor and the elephant a victim. And in court, the elephant tells his side of the story, about how he is trying to protect himself from this barbaric black man, but at least shows sympathy by asking the other animals to be lenient. But then, the judge, the lion, says his ruling.
Именем высокого и авторитетного суда. Обвинение.
Человек, слушай же решение суда.
Нападение на господина слона, присвоение имущества господина слона, сигарет и журналов. Виновен.
Решение наверняка будет справедливым,
Попытка вломиться в хижину,
ведь господа звери известны как беспристрастные джентльмены, издавна самим Богом призваны охранять интересы низших рас.
Виновен по всем пунктам и заслуживает самого строгого наказания. Но, учитывая отсталость и дикость человека, суд считает возможным на первый раз простить его и разрешить ему построить себе новую хижину.
Вот видишь, какие доброжелательные судьи.
The black man's property, such as cigarettes and magazines, are to be confiscated and given back to the elephant, while the man is declared guilty on all charges. But at least he is forgiven and will not be punished because of his savagery and barbarity, according to the lion. He will also be allowed to build a hut for himself, so the black man does that. But there is a problem. Every time he builds himself a new hut, it is taken over, first by the rhino, then the hyena, then the crocodile.
Что же ты теперь будешь делать? Хорошо еще, что они не стали судить тебя за новые преступления. Воистину, они к тебе доброжелательны. А может быть, ты действительно виновен? Виновен в том, что не похож на них. Виновен в том, что это твоя земля.
The animals afterwards destroy the entire land, taking all of its resources for themselves, until the man, finally, decides to act. He builds a huge hut, bigger than all of the others, and leaves it open. All of the animals rush to the hut trying to take it over, and then they fight with each other, up until...
Ну а теперь...
Дорого обошлось человеку знакомство со звериной цивилизацией. Но зато он многое понял и многому научился.
So, do I even need to say anything? Well, anyways, this is Jungle Jitters, an American cartoon from 1938 that was banned in 1963 for being too offensive. This was banned 5 years after the African tale was released in the Soviet Union, showing how culturally developed each country was. This is despite America having a lot more black people in comparison to the Soviet Union. In this film, a white man working as a salesman appears at an African village attempting to sell them objects that they have never seen before. But they only see one thing in the man, a meal. So they steal his stuff and don't know how to use them while they are literally cooking him. One man destroys a hut with a vacuum cleaner and another screws in light bulbs in his ears. This is supposed to be funny. Then we realize that they are ruled by an old white woman for some reason. And this white woman asks for the man since she wants to get with him, so they bring him to her. He tries to sell her a toaster. They set him up to marry the woman, and he'd rather be cooked alive than marry that ugly woman. Again, this is supposed to be funny, and this is pretty much the end of the cartoon. Both of these films portray black people in totally different ways. One shows them as human beings, makes a statement about colonialism and how the white man exploited Africa and Africans. The other is a freak. It has no message. It has nothing substantial to be discussed. Just nothing. It portrays African as more akin to animals than humans. They even had a white person rule them because they couldn't imagine having black people rule themselves back then. This is a direct extension of American white supremacy, if anything. The Soviet film is based on a parable written by an anti-imperialist, a former Kenyan president, while the American film is just, what the fuck? The African tale draws Africans in a humanizing manner, proportional facial features, strong bodies fitting of their daily activities shown in the film, such as farming and gathering fruit, while the American film relies on nothing more than racist stereotypes with the jumping around and dancing and the nose rings, portrays them closer to monkeys than humans really. So what is this a product of, I hear you ask? This is, in my opinion, a product of ideology. American ideology is capitalist at the end of the day. It has no underlying moral compass as long as the consumer is consuming. If the people who are gonna watch this are gonna like it, then they will produce it. And in the 1930s, when this was first produced, the white middle class was a lot more prosperous. Hell, the Civil Rights Act was still 30 years away, so of course this was how they portrayed black people. This was about 20 years before Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to sit in the back of the bus. How do you imagine the white people, the main consumers of this shit, were back then? I'll tell you what, they definitely viewed black people as more animalistic than human. Compare this to the Soviet ideology of socialism. Of course, a place that has an ideology that separates people based on social class and claims to fight for the weaker social class would be aligned with the exploited and not the exploiter, especially at a time where the exploited African men and women were fighting for themselves. All of this was happening during the Cold War, mind you. It doesn't matter really what your opinion is of the Soviet Union or even of socialism right now. There is one country that portrayed black people as humans while at the same time the other country had to enshrine into law that they are. One country made the African tale and the other made Jungle Jitters. And both films didn't have a black person work on them, but they turned out to be completely different. Thanks for watching.